I never really liked Valentine's Day. I've been single most of my adult life, and the holiday just felt like a big neon reminder of that. So last year, I decided to get out of town for the weekend. I booked a 2-night stay at a cheap roadside motel about an hour outside the city. I thought some peace, quiet, and a few good books might do me some good. It was one of those old motels with rooms that opened directly to the parking lot. You know the kind. Faded paint, flickering neon sign, vending machines that only take quarters. It was cheap, and that's all I cared about. They gave me room 214. The front desk guy, an older man with yellowed eyes and a raspy voice, handed me the key like it weighed a ton. He paused a moment, staring at the card before giving it to me, and said, "Let me know if you need anything." I nodded, brushed it off. The room was exactly what you'd expect. Dim lighting, stained carpet, buzzing mini fridge, and floral bedsheets that smelled faintly of bleach and cigarette smoke. It wasn't cozy, but it was quiet. I ordered some cheap takeout and settled in for the night with a thriller novel. Around 1 a.m. I woke up to the sound of knocking. Not on my door, on the wall. 3 knocks. Slow, steady. Then silence. At first I thought it might be the room next door, thin walls and all. I tried to go back to sleep, but a few minutes later it happened again. Knock, knock, knock. Same rhythm, same spot. Right by the head of the bed, where the wall met the headboard. I sat up this time, alert. I pressed my ear to the wall. Nothing. Total silence. Eventually, I fell back asleep. The next morning, I went to the front desk to ask if anyone was in the room next to mine. The same old guy was there. He looked up from his crossword puzzle, and when I mentioned the knocking, his face went blank. "There's no one in room 215, he said. I raised an eyebrow. "Are you sure? Maybe someone checked in late last night?" He shook his head slowly. "We haven't used that room in over a year. Water damage, pipes burst. We keep it locked." He must have noticed the look on my face, because he added, "You want to switch rooms?" I said no. Honestly, I don't know why. Maybe I didn't want to seem paranoid. Maybe I thought I imagined it. Either way, I stayed. That night, I made sure the TV was on as background noise. I left the bathroom light on too. I was lying in bed, scrolling through my phone, when I saw a shadow move across the bottom of the bathroom door. I froze. There was no sound, no creak of footsteps. But I know what I saw. The shadow of someone, or something, walking past the door inside my own room. I grabbed the metal ice bucket off the nightstand and stood up slowly. My heart was thudding so loud it felt like it might shake the walls. The bathroom was empty. No one in the tub, no one behind the door, no windows were open. I checked the front door, still locked, bolt in place. I didn't sleep that night. Around 3:30 a.m., the knocking started again. Knock, knock, knock. I tried to ignore it. I told myself it was the pipes, but then I noticed something. The knocking wasn't coming from the wall this time. It was coming from the mirror, the large mirror on the wall opposite the bed. 3 slow knocks, like someone was inside it, trying to get out. I didn't even move. I just stared, frozen, my breath shallow. I sat there for what felt like an hour, watching that mirror, waiting for it to happen again. It didn't. When the sun rose, I packed my bag and left without checking out. I left the key on the front desk and drove straight home. A week later, curiosity got the better of me. I looked up the motel online. Buried deep in the results, I found a local news story from 3 years ago. Valentine's Day weekend. A woman checked into room 214. Her boyfriend was supposed to join her the next day. When he arrived, she wasn't there. The room was locked from the inside, no signs of forced entry. Her suitcase was still there, so was her phone. But she was gone. They never found her. I don't know what happened to her. I don't know what I heard or what I saw. All I know is I'll never stay in a motel again, and I'll never forget the sound of that knocking. Knock, knock, knock. I never thought Valentine's Day would be something to fear until the year I almost didn't make it home. That year, I was living in a small city apartment on the second floor. My building was old, but quiet, and I liked that. No loud neighbors, no big parties. I worked late shifts at a grocery store, so I was used to being out at night. Valentine's Day fell on a Friday, and I wasn't seeing anyone. My friends were all busy with their dates, so I planned to spend the evening alone, watching movies and eating junk food. It felt like the safest, simplest plan. I left work around 11 p.m., tired and ready to go home. The street was nearly empty, just a few cars parked along the side and a couple of streetlights flickering weakly. I had my keys in my hand, ready to unlock my door when I noticed someone walking behind me. At first, I didn't think much of it. People walk behind you all the time. But this person wasn't just walking. They were keeping pace exactly with me. Every time I stopped, they stopped. When I turned a corner, they turned the same way. I tried to ignore it and quickened my step. That's when my heart started pounding. The street was empty except for us. The silence felt thick and heavy, like something was pressing down on me. Looked back quickly, just enough to see a man maybe in his late 30s or early 40s. He was wearing a dark jacket and a baseball cap pulled low over his face. I couldn't see his eyes, but I could feel his gaze burning right at me. I turned another corner, hoping to lose him in the maze of alleys near my building. But he didn't lose me. I started running. My shoes slapped hard on the pavement. My breath came in short gasps. The streetlights flickered above, some buzzing loudly, others dead and dark. I reached the door to my building and fumbled with my keys, shaking so badly I dropped them. The man was right behind me now. I finally got the door, open and slammed it shut just as he grabbed the handle. I pressed my body against the door, trying to catch my breath. The handle rattled beneath his hand, hard, fast. I called 911, whispering my address and what was happening. The dispatcher told me to stay on the line and keep the door locked. The man kept trying to get in, pounding on the door with his fists. I could hear his voice now, low, angry, almost threatening. He was yelling something I couldn't understand. Then, as suddenly as it started, he stopped. The pounding stopped. The silence came back. I stayed against the door for what felt like hours. Finally, I heard sirens in the distance. The man was gone. The police came quickly, and they searched the building and nearby streets. No sign of him. The officer who stayed with me said something that stuck with me. These types of attacks are sometimes planned. The man probably watched you for a while. I felt sick. I never told my friends what happened because I didn't want them to worry. But every time I walked home after work, I checked over my shoulder. A few weeks later, Valentine's Day came again. I almost didn't go outside, but I did. Because I couldn't live in fear. Still, something felt wrong that night. The streets were quieter than usual. The wind was colder. And when I reached my building, I noticed a note stuck to the door with red lipstick. It said simply, "Happy Valentine's Day." No signature. No explanation. Just those 3 words. I looked around. No one in sight. I took the note inside and locked the door behind me. I never found out who left it, but I always wonder, was it him or someone worse? Every year since then, Valentine's Day feels different. It's not about love or chocolates anymore. It's about looking over my shoulder and listening for footsteps behind me. I still live in that apartment. I'm Careful now. Sometimes late at night I swear I hear a knock at the door. But when I look, no one's there. Just an empty hallway. And the echo of a nightmare that never left. I always thought my apartment building was quiet and safe. It wasn't a fancy place, but it was home. I lived there alone, and I liked the peace. That Valentine's Day started like any other. I didn't have plans, just a quiet night with some takeout and a movie. But something strange happened that night. Something I still can't explain. It all began when I noticed a new neighbor moving into the apartment next to mine. I never saw him clearly because we only passed each other in the hallway, but he always seemed off, quiet, never saying a word. At first I didn't think much about it. People are different. Maybe he was shy. A few days before Valentine's Day, I heard noises through the wall separating our apartments. It wasn't loud, just soft sounds, like footsteps pacing back and forth. Sometimes a muffled cough or a low murmur. Nothing alarming. Then, on Valentine's Day evening, I was sitting on my couch watching TV when I heard a sudden knock on my wall. Not a door knock. Right on the wall. I froze. It was slow and soft, like someone tapping gently. I waited. No other sound. I thought maybe it was the new neighbor trying to get my attention. I smiled, waved at the wall like an idiot, then went back to my show. But then the knocking came again. Knock. 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 This time. Faster. My heart started racing. I called out, "Hello? Are you okay?" No answer. I thought maybe he was trying to communicate. Maybe he was lonely too. I decided to write a note and tape it to my door. If you need help, just say so. The next day, I found the note was gone. That night, the knocking started again, but it got worse. It was constant. Rapid. Like someone was trying to break through the wall. I tried to ignore it, but the sounds echoed in my head. I didn't sleep. Then, I noticed something else. Every time the knocking started, my lights flickered. At first I thought it was a coincidence. But it kept happening. The knocking. The flickering. One night I heard the sound of my front door unlocking. I sat perfectly still. I didn't move. The door didn't open. The knob turned slowly, almost like someone was trying to be quiet. My breath stopped. I grabbed my phone, ready to call for help, but then the door locked again on its own. I stayed awake all night after that. The next day, I asked the building manager if anyone new had moved in. He told me the apartment next to mine had been empty for months. I felt like I was losing my mind. But the knocking didn't stop. It got louder, more violent. One night I was too scared to stay. I went out for a walk, hoping to clear my head. When I came back, I found my door wide open. Nothing was missing, no sign of forced entry. But the locks were broken. I called the police. They said maybe someone tried to break in but left when they heard me leave. I changed the locks the next day. But that night, the knocking returned. Only this time, it came from inside my apartment. From behind the bedroom closet door. I opened it slowly. Nothing there. No one. Just my clothes and some boxes. I closed it quickly. I never heard the knocking again. But sometimes, when I'm alone, I still hear soft taps on the wall, and I still don't know if it was my neighbor or something worse. Valentine's Day wasn't a big deal for me. I didn't have anyone special, and I usually just went about my day like any other. But that year, something happened that made me wish I had stayed far away from the city. I worked at a small flower shop downtown. We were busy that day with last-minute orders and people rushing to buy gifts. Around 5 p.m., my manager asked me to deliver a few bouquets to some local addresses. It was nothing unusual. I was used to driving around the city, dropping off flowers. One delivery was to a small apartment on the other side of town. The address was on a quiet street, lined with old houses. The building looked normal enough. Nothing fancy, nothing scary. I parked in front and grabbed the flowers. I rang the doorbell, but no one answered. I knocked on the door a few times, called the phone number on the order, but still no answer. After a few minutes, I was about to leave when I noticed the door was slightly open, just a crack. I hesitated, but the instructions said to deliver the flowers inside if no one answered. I pushed the door gently and stepped inside. The apartment was dark and smelled like stale smoke. I called out softly, "Hello? Delivery for you." No answer. The place looked empty. The furniture was old and covered in dust. On the kitchen table was a small box of chocolates, half-eaten, with a note that said, "Happy Valentine's Day." I felt uneasy, but I was almost done. I left the flowers on the table and started to leave. That's when I heard a noise, a soft sound from the bedroom. It was like someone breathing. I stopped. My heart started to race. I called again. "Is someone here?" No answer. I wanted to leave right away, but the door slammed shut behind me. I jumped and spun around, but the door was locked. I tried to open it, but it wouldn't budge. I felt trapped. Looked around for my phone, but it was in my jacket outside on the porch. I was stuck. Then I heard footsteps. Slow, heavy steps coming from the bedroom. I couldn't see anything in the dark, but I could hear the breathing getting closer. I backed away until I hit the wall. My mind screamed for me to run, but I was frozen. Then the footsteps stopped. Silence. I waited a moment, then I ran toward the window. It was locked tight. I banged on the glass, hoping someone outside would hear me. Minutes passed. Nothing. I sat on the floor, shaking. Finally, the door unlocked. I didn't wait for anyone. I ran out as fast as I could and jumped into my car. I locked the doors and drove away, heart pounding. I told my manager what happened, but he said the apartment was supposed to be empty for months. No one was living there. No orders had come from that address before or since. I never went back. And every Valentine's Day I remember that night. I don't know what I heard in that apartment, but I know one thing. Some places should stay locked. I never thought a simple stop for gas on Valentine's Day would turn into one of the scariest nights of my life. That evening, I was driving home after visiting a friend. The roads were mostly empty, and the sky was dark and cloudy. I realized I needed gas, so I pulled into a small, old gas station on the edge of town. The station was almost deserted. Just one worker inside the little store, and a few cars parked far away. I got out of my car and started pumping gas. The cold night air made me shiver. I was alone except for a man at the next pump. He looked normal at first, middle-aged, wearing a heavy jacket and a cap pulled low over his face. He didn't say a word, just stared ahead. I finished filling my tank and went inside to pay. The clerk was quiet, but friendly. I paid, grabbed a bottle of water, and headed back outside. That's when the man at the pump behind me spoke for the first time. "Nice night," he said. His voice was low and calm. I smiled awkwardly. "Yeah, kinda chilly though." He didn't say anything more, just watched me. I felt a little uncomfortable but didn't want to be rude, so I said, "You headed somewhere tonight?" He looked at me slowly and then said, "Just around." I nodded and started walking back to my car. As I got in and started the engine, I noticed his car door open. He didn't leave. He just stood there, watching me. I locked my doors. The engine roared as I pulled away. At first I thought it was over. But then, when I turned onto the main road, I saw headlights behind me. They followed. The man was driving. I tried to stay calm. I didn't want to make a mistake. I drove carefully, checking the rearview mirror. He kept his distance but never turned away. Every time I slowed down, he slowed down. Every time I turned, he turned. My heart pounded. I remembered a police station a few miles ahead. I decided to go there. I sped up, hoping to lose him, but the car behind me followed even faster. I pulled into the police parking lot and got out as fast as I could. The man stopped his car across the street, but didn't get out. The officers saw me and came outside. I told them what happened. They checked around the lot but didn't find anyone nearby except the man's car. One officer walked over to the man's car and tapped on the window. The man rolled it down slowly. He looked calm, almost too calm. The officer asked, "Is everything all right?" The man nodded and said, "Just out for a drive." The officers warned him to keep his distance. The man got back in his car and drove off slowly. I stayed at the station for a while, still shaking. I never saw that man again. But since that night, every time I stop at a gas station alone, I check around more carefully. I lock my doors right away. And I always wonder, was he just a stranger? Or someone waiting for a chance?